Hello everyone, my name is Pauline Rodish. I am a clinical hypnotherapist, coach, author, and today feels like the beginning of a brand new chapter in my life. It's a chapter that I've chosen to call the Happiness Alchemist. I've always loved that word, alchemy. It's all about transformation. So over the coming months, this channel is going to be a place where we explore happiness, subconscious transformation, personal growth, intuition, possibility, and what it really means to consciously evolve. Somehow this feels like the perfect conversation to begin with. I'd like to ask you a question. Have you ever felt a niggle, a nudge that simply wouldn't go away? Maybe it's a dream from of old that just is always resurrecting itself, if you like, an idea, a calling perhaps, a feeling that there's more for you. I mean, that's certainly what I have experienced. Something that just keeps returning in spite of you ignoring it, and no matter how often you push it aside, it still remains. It's there. I think that's a really good thing, and I'm hoping to share with you how that is a good thing for you as well. But I've been giving this a lot of thought recently, and here's why. I've already spent over 6 decades on this planet, 61 years to be precise. A few short months away, I'll be 62. And that makes a person pause. Many people, I could have been retired, quite honestly, from a couple of careers at this stage of my life. But as I'm about to explain to you, that is not how it went. And that's not how it's going. And for me, that's a really good thing. I thought, though, like many people, I thought I would have reached a place in my life at this stage where, I just had that absolute contentment. I knew who I was and why I was, if you like. And I've been certainly asking those questions for many, many years. But, I find myself once again in another season of growth. And honestly, that could be scary for some people, and even for me in the past. But actually, I feel truly excited. And I'm going to add here the quote from Steve Jobs because, I loved it when I heard it first, and I've often used it with clients. You cannot join the dots of your life looking forward. You can only look back and join the dots from looking back. And I feel that's exactly what's going on for me. I look back and I see all this, these different careers and how they actually now have meaning. Let me explain to you a little bit what I mean by that, okay? Recently, I was on holiday in the beautiful Greek island of Corfu, and there was a word that just kept coming to me, and it was the word inevitable. Now, look, we all know that change is inevitable, but in spite of knowing that, it just landed very differently on me. I've heard it countless times through many of my own trainings, but I finally had space, I believe, to hear it and what it actually means at this stage of my life. And the more I sat with it, the more I realized something important, that while change is guaranteed to happen, most of us spend a lot of time resisting change. Most of us are afraid of change. We fear change. We try to hold on to the status quo, even though we're not happy. And we might want more happiness, more joy, more peace, more time, more freedom, financial and otherwise, better relationships, more purpose, confidence, fulfillment and meaning. And certainly all of those things are things that I have wanted at different stages in my life. For now, it's about even more fulfillment, more purpose, more creativity is what I'm on the path of at this point in time, to help more people. But think about it for a second. We might want those things, but we might not want to actually have to do anything with ourselves to change. We don't want necessarily to go and do that inner work that is required for us to change. And that is why we're stuck. That's where we get stuck, because we want the things, but we're not really prepared to put the effort in. And I'm just calling that out because it's a fact. Or we give up too easily on making those changes. So out there in Greece, I was looking out into the beautiful turquoise Ionian Sea and reflecting on my own life with multiple careers. Now, I'm not wearing that as a badge of honor because for a long time I saw that as a major flaw in my personality, that I just didn't have the stickability. I mean, my very first career was on Garda Siochana, the police force in Ireland, where I stayed for 8 years, something I had wanted to do from a very young age, but I didn't fulfill a 30-year contract there. No, I left and then I went to British Airways as cabin crew, and from British Airways, I stayed there for 15 years, mind you. I love traveling around the world. I love many aspects of the police work as well. It was fantastic. It helped me with investigative skills, which I think helps in coaching, in fact, and even with hypnotherapy. But I took all the best out of those careers. And then I had a number of miscarriages, and that led me to energy healing. And I became a Reiki master. And from that, I became a yoga and meditation teacher, and then a coach, and then a hypnotherapist. And then I wrote a book called Just Trust, Listen to the Wisdom of Your Soul. It's all about my intuition and my own personal journey. And I know I'm rhyming off a load of different things, but can you understand what I'm saying to you now? When I look back, I no longer see it as a flaw. I can really understand that there was nothing wrong. In fact, there was a lot of things right. And my life has begun truly to make a lot of sense. And I'm still very grateful that I'm here and feeling healthy and still interested in my life and interested in helping people, because that's at the core of everything that I've done ultimately, as a friend recently pointed out when I was sharing about this next chapter, if you like. So, I used to look at some of those people that followed that straight path, and I was asking all the wrong questions, might I add, like what's wrong with me and why am I always evolving and why can't I just stick at something? Those are not empowering questions. And it's understandable why it used to bring me down a rabbit hole of sadness and confusion for much of my life, I have to say. But anyhow, here we are, and I've come to realize truly that change, can be such a beautiful thing when we consciously choose to change and make decisions around what it is that we want. Now I look at all that backstory as life was inviting me to move forward into something greater. I didn't always have the confidence. I, doubted myself, and many times I did things in spite of the fear, and I'm so glad that I did that, and I suppose that's why I'm still here talking and sharing with you today. But many of us start believing that we should stay the same, because a lot of people have said to me, why would you change? People don't change. I remember a teacher saying that in school, that people don't change, and that was very untrue and is untrue to this day. When you think about it, a seed becomes a tree because the seed growth is already in the seed. In other words, growth is its nature. And I believe that that's true for us as well. It's almost that seed is inside us when we're born. And it's important that we continue to grow and evolve, because there was a wonderful teacher. She passed away recently and her name escapes me, but she talks about the entelechy of a seed, the acorn, that an acorn cannot become a sycamore tree. It has to become an oak tree. And so equally, we have a seed within us to become a certain thing. And I know that it requires confidence and it requires a lot of effort at times to bring that forward and forth in our lives. But we know that it is possible because we have all seen evidence that people have done it. And I've no doubt that you've overcome some of the obstacles in your life too, and are doing some things that once upon a time felt scary. So congratulations too. But what I'd like to say to you is, we're not here to stay exactly the same, because that's not a possibility anyway. You can stay in a job for 30 years, but in many ways you are going to change, throughout your career and with your personal life and so on and so forth. The question is, are you actually doing what you truly want to do? And it doesn't matter what age or stage of life you're at. I want to share with you, and I hope I'm an example of that change is possible at any stage of your life. It is never too late. It's never too late to outgrow those old identities that no longer fit, the old roles that we've played. Often, perhaps, we're playing roles that were never our roles to begin with, meaning somebody else influenced our decisions back in the day, usually parents or maybe a teacher with very good intentions in most cases. But perhaps we just didn't get a chance to voice our own desires or put our own stamp on our lives. And I really want to encourage people to release that version of themselves now and to become much more conscious in the choice making. so that you are feeling much more aligned and you're acknowledging that nudge, that inner voice, that whisper from your soul. It is your intuition speaking to you. It's available to all of us. And I suppose I've learned to hone my intuition over the years through meditation, daily meditation. And in fact, that is why, because one of the questions I ask myself in meditation is, what is my dharma? What is my purpose? How can I help? How can I serve? Like, I have been asking those questions since 2008, and we're now in 2026. You might think that I'd cop on and actually stop asking those questions so as not to continue this evolution, if you like, and chopping and changing. But that is because those questions are really connected with our purpose, the seed within, and how that grows. And I believe I will continue to ask those questions because they light me up and they give me that fire in the belly. And many other people that I've taught this meditation to, they too have gained from having these questions. I will say, if you're content with your lot and you don't want to continue evolving, then you can stop asking those questions in meditation. Okay. What if I was to say to you that there's more of you also waiting to emerge? I think most of us know that deep, deep down. But perhaps we stop believing it, or maybe we never believed it in the first place, because I've met lots of people like that too. I totally get it. Life gets busy. We just row in. We get on with it. We forget those dreams. We forget sometimes that, we had a dream about something different for our lives, something more elaborate perhaps. And we just allowed life to get in the way. Maybe other people influenced us, as I say, and we just stay in the same thing. And I'm not criticizing that, and I'm certainly not judging that. But responsibilities take over, perhaps children arrive. I'm at a stage in my own life where my mother lives with me and my husband and my son. My son is now 20. His needs are different and my responsibilities with him have changed naturally, but now I have my mother living with us. And while she's amazing and very capable, thankfully at the age of 88, and a wonderful role model to me in many ways, life is always happening, okay? And things are coming in and things will change, circumstances will change. But the essence of who we are is solid. And that's why we have to do the inner work from time to time to really remember who we are at our core and what lights us up and what fuels us and, why perhaps that whisper is there reminding us that there's more and doesn't go away. So we often get blocked too with not just the busyness of life, but fears, old fears, because many of our fears have been installed from a very, very young age. Most of our programming happens between the age of 0 and 7. These form our beliefs that become limiting beliefs in many instances, fear-based, old stories that creep in, that make us think, if you like, that things can repeat themselves. And here's the truth, they will repeat themselves in a negative fashion or in a positive fashion, depending on what is fueling it and what we're focusing on, because that's how our brain is operating. Our subconscious programming was developed when we were kids, and that influences the choices that we make. They become patterns in the brain. But the good news is we know, because of neuroplasticity, that we can change literally the structure of our brain. We can change neural pathways in our brain. We can change habits. We can change how we see ourselves and perceive ourselves. We can even reframe in a very positive tone negative things that have happened in our lives. We can imagine that we're already the person that we desire to be, because the brain cannot differentiate between something imagined or something real. We have all of this in our corner to help us transform. So it's really important. I'm not a neuroscientist, but I am incredibly fascinated by it, and I follow many neuroscientists and wonderful teachers out there online that help me. And of course, many of my trainings have incorporated elements of this. So it really has sparked an interest in me, because I love the fact that we do not have to stay the same. I love the fact that we can change. So I just want you to think about that these are patterns, and we can change them, which is really the good news. So, because if something can be learned, it can also be unlearned. And this is the work that I get to do with great pleasure every single day with clients, helping them to recognize the patterns that they have outgrown, helping them to realize that they can form new patterns, new habits, helping them to understand that the beliefs that no longer serve them can actually be changed. Isn't that amazing? The beliefs that no longer serve you can be changed with conscious effort. The stories that you've been carrying around for years also can be reframed. I'm not diminishing anything that was painful in the past, but I am certainly encouraging people not to stay living in the past, because that is not helpful. And you know it's not helpful because you have evidence that it's not helpful. And I want to encourage you to look for new evidence that your life can open up to greater possibilities, to new adventures, to tapping into your creative essence and power to create that life that you truly want. It's not about becoming somebody else. It's about taking away all the layers that cover up the real you effectively, so that you can shine, that you can thrive, that you can flourish, that you can become, I know it's bandied around a lot, the authentic self, but that's the reality, your pure essence, the essence of who you are. Before life, threw you some negatives and painful moments, but I really want to encourage you not to stay in those painful moments. Healing is necessary, but once the healing is done, it's time to move forward. Forward momentum. So it's remembering who you are underneath all of the fear, the doubts, the worries, the limitations, the conditioning. It really is conditioning. And I just want to confirm that I believe, from a spiritual perspective in particular, that we all get these nudges, these whispers from God, the universe, your soul, the essence of who you are before you're incarnated. That's there. There is a message. You came in with an awareness of who you were going to be. And I think now we're coming around full circle to this. Just feel it on the planet at large. So I want to encourage you to pay attention to those whispers from the universe, or whatever you're happy to call it. Pay attention to it. Start trusting yourself a little bit more. And, back yourself in taking the next natural step for you, realizing that there is more for you too. The question is whether you're going to listen to that message. Please remember that change is inevitable. It is always happening. Changing consciously is actually a choice. And the real question becomes, are you going to change by design or by default? So here's a question I've been sitting with myself for a little while. If you've ever felt that nudge that we've been talking about today, I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel and join me on this adventure. I'm just starting out on this journey, and I am looking at a few notes here to keep me on track, so you might see my eyes dropping down, but I just want to make sure that I'm covering everything that I want to say on this particular video. This channel is going to be a place for honest conversations, and I feel so ready to share some of my own misdemeanors in my life, my own misgivings, but also to help you to realize that this is your one beautiful life, and to encourage you to live it to the best that you possibly can, and to, rid yourself of some of those demons in your mind and those old negative beliefs and programming and conditioning that is holding you back and has held you back for way too long. I also have been held back by those same limitations. I've been working on them, working through them. And as I said, I have felt like I have been a flawed person for a good chunk of my life. But I honestly can say that I'm so glad I've stuck with the chopping and the changing, because it has all begun to come together. And I hope that you can see some of my story in your story. So like I say, this channel is going to come together with honest conversations, subconscious transformation, intuition, personal growth, spiritual growth, and what it really means to consciously evolve. My hope is that these conversations will help you to see yourself differently, not as somebody who needs to be fixed, not as somebody who has missed their chance, because you absolutely have not, but as somebody who's still growing, learning, and becoming the best version of yourself. Okay, change is inevitable. Conscious evolution is a choice. Thank you for being here. I'd love to hear some of your comments. I hope something was relatable in this video for you. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Please subscribe and thank you.